My name is Joe Cobb. I'm the current Vice Mayor of the City of Roanoke. Served on City Council since 2018, and I'm running for mayor for the City of Roanoke.
Great. And then if you could just sort of tell us briefly your background.
Sure. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. I'm one of 4 adopted children. My parents were not able to have children of their own, and so they took the courageous leap to adopt 4 children from all different backgrounds and raised us up in a spirit of love. They were committed to our education, always proud of everything that we were able to achieve. They're since deceased, but marvelous people. I went to college in Winfield, Kansas, seminary in Dallas, Texas at SMU, and was ordained in the United Methodist Church. Served as a United Methodist clergy for about 20 years, and then in 2001, I left the United Methodist Church. I couldn't be openly gay and serve as an ordained clergy, and so I made the decision to move to Roanoke to be closer to my former spouse and our 2 children. I did that in 2001. Moved here a year after the Backstreet Cafe shootings on Salem Avenue, and wondered if Roanoke was the kind of city where I could thrive, begin a new life, get invested in the community. And I quickly discovered that it was. And over the course of those years, I worked in marketing and PR for the Roanoke Symphony. I was the executive director of what's now called Family Promise of Greater Roanoke, which works with homeless families to help them secure permanent housing. And I served as pastor of the Metropolitan Community Church for 8 years. And then when I retired from that role, I thought about what my next role might be in the city, and I wanted to expand my work in social justice, equity, and equality. And I had several colleagues encourage me to consider running for city council, and I did, and have been on council ever since. My other hat that I wear is as a chaplain for Hermitage Roanoke, which is a senior living community located in Northwest Roanoke.
Mm-hmm. That's great. My mom went to SMU, actually.
Oh, and I also, I mentioned my first spouse and our children. I also, my husband, James, and I have lived here for 23 years, and we have 2 children who are in Roanoke City Public Schools, both in high school.
Great. Well, tell me, why do you want to be Roanoke's next mayor?
Having been on city council and seeing how well this city works together when it wants to work together has really been inspiring to me. I have found in the course of my years on council that we have citizens, we have community partners, we have local government departments, we have businesses that all want to make Roanoke better. And the welcome that I have received in the 23 years I've been here, and how that's created a pathway for me to become a leader in a way that I never anticipated or expected, is a real honor for me. And as Roanoke's next mayor, I want to help our city get even better in every facet of what that looks like, whether it's our quality of life or our education, whatever your age, our public transit system, a reduction in the social challenges that we struggle with daily, whether it's gun violence or homelessness or the opioid fentanyl epidemic. I work well with people, and I think Roanoke does our best when we're working together on finding creative, courageous solutions to some of our greatest challenges. And I believe I'm the best person to do that, and equipped to do that, and believe in the power of relationships to get that done. So I'm excited about running for mayor. I think it's an extension of the commitment I've already conveyed and do every day when I'm working for and with the city. And I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to do that as mayor.
Let's talk policy priorities. If you're elected, What's one of the first actions you would push for City Council to take?
Because housing is such a critical issue right now, and we're on the cusp of actually crafting our legislative agenda for the next General Assembly, I'm very interested in what we can do to create an easier pathway for housing in two regards. We're already a land bank community. We work with TAP, but I discovered this fall that the threshold for assessed values of properties to become or to be transferred into the land bank have to be $75,000 or less. And there are several properties that I have thought we could transfer to the land bank through that process, but their assessed value was above $75,000. So I think advocating for a change in the guidelines that allows a higher threshold, particularly as property values have gone up, I think that will allow us to put more blighted, abandoned houses that have been foreclosed on or owe back taxes that we can transfer to the land bank and convert those relatively quickly into single-family homes or into multifamily homes. The second thing is House Bill 802 allows localities to have more authority to charge landlords for damages on properties that they're not caring for. And I think we as a city have not felt for a long time that we had enough teeth in code enforcement to be able to require more specific upgrades to properties that could make them more livable. Some would argue we have enough housing, which we know we don't, but when a lot of the housing is substandard and it creates health risks for the families who are living in them, we need to be able to address that. So those are two policy issues that may seem minor, but when you're talking about creating more housing, those are major things that I think would help us get there faster.
Mm-hmm. And that would require state level support, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything particular that council itself you think could do on this issue
locally,
or something else that you would push for right away?
I feel pretty good about our policies here. I think we're currently reviewing code enforcement and to see what kind of levels of authority we have, because we get a lot of requests from citizens about and concerns about blighted properties. So I think to the degree that we can affect policy that allows us more authority that we may already have that we haven't tapped into, I would want us to explore that. But that's particularly about continuing to provide strength and resources to our neighborhoods, making sure that homes are being taken care of, that we can move some of those abandoned homes off the abandoned list and that they're livable, and that even businesses that are perhaps operating illegally or the properties have become abandoned and blighted. All it takes is one of those in a section of a neighborhood to really feel like it's bringing the whole neighborhood or the whole block down. And we want to try and reduce that as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. As you know, the mayor is only one vote of a 7-person city council. How do you persuade other members to agree to your proposals?
Through conversation, through relationship. I think the mayor really helps set the tone for how we do that. One of the things that I would do as mayor is meet with each city council member once a month, just to check in with them, to see what's on their mind, what they're hearing from constituents in the community, talk about some of the issues that are coming up, and really have more of a thoughtful process. I'm not saying we don't have one currently, but to really, through relationship building, spend more time reflecting on the issues that are before us, whether that's on the agenda before us, from a Thursday to a Monday, or if it's something that we're looking down the road. The other reason that's important is because come January, we will have at least 3 new council members. And there's a possibility that we'll have 3 new council members who've not had any local government experience. And we'll have a new city manager, hopefully. So that's a lot of new. And particularly as we are seeing a lot of our collective wisdom leaving council, with the mayor stepping down after 20 years, Trish White-Boyd after 6 years, and previously we had Anita Price and Bill Bestpitch. There's not only a lot of new wisdom and insights coming on board, but there will be likely a generational shift to, in some ways, a younger council. And so how we shape that council, how we work together as a team with each other and with the city manager and the city manager's team is going to be absolutely critical to moving the needle and keeping Roanoke moving forward. So building and sustaining those kinds of relationships with council members is really important to me. And I practice that now, but I think as mayor, and even with my 2 remaining years in my term on city council, that's something I'll continue to practice.
Roanoke's residential neighborhoods remain highly racially segregated. What role should city government play in dismantling that legacy?
Well, with our recent zoning amendments, we took a big step in doing that by removing exclusionary zoning, which was predominantly created through single-family zones during Jim Crow and as part of segregation policy. We've essentially taken that off the books. Creating more opportunities of housing options throughout the city where people can afford to live, where they want to live. We're a very diverse city. And yet sometimes when we look at the demographics of where our citizens live, it still reflects some of that sense of segregation. And I think as we have younger professionals coming in and even older adults who are wanting to retire here, we're finding that we have a shortage of the kinds of homes or housing that they're interested in, the variety of them. And so the zoning amendments were an attempt to begin to create more of those opportunities. So housing is a big piece of that, but I also think focusing on the neighborhood centers and having gathering places within our neighborhoods for food, for healthcare, for recreation, for community centers or recreation centers or small business incubators. These are the kinds of things that are built into our neighborhood center plan so that a neighborhood center in Grandin Village or on 11th Street or on 9th Street in the Belmont-Fallon area or in a section of or all of Williamson Road. These are the places that we want people to be able to gather and to see the diversity of our city reflected in their neighborhood. And the other thing that I think is important for us to remember is that when we look at the demographics of our Roanoke City Public Schools, and we have 23 schools, elementary, middle, high school, and then 2 career technical education schools, 39% of our students are African American or Black, 31 are Hispanic, Asian or other, and 30 are Caucasian. It's a very different demographic layout than our overall city population, which is still about 60% Caucasian, 30% African American, and about 10% other. I think our student population reflects the future of our city. And so the ways in which we create opportunity, whether it's through educational pathways, through business opportunities, through housing opportunities, through workforce development opportunities, those all work together to help create more diversity within our city, in every part of our city.
You have served on council for 6 years now. Looking back over your time in office, what is your proudest accomplishment, and why would that not have happened had you not been on council?
So my proudest accomplishment and probably the most difficult work has been addressing gun violence. I was barely into my first year, and I was listening to the public safety report given by our then police chief, Tim Jones. And there were a couple of things that struck me about it. One was that we were starting to see an increase in injuries related to gun violence and homicides. And I remember feeling this compelling passion, perhaps, to talk to the mayor and the city manager about creating a task force to reduce gun violence. And they both supported it, and the city council at that time supported it. And we appointed citizens who did a really amazing job of identifying 5 key areas for prevention, intervention, and response. And then over the course of the years, we've developed that, and we were able to secure the first grant through the state. The police department actually secured a grant to create a reset team, and then we secured a grant to create a youth and gang violence prevention team. We built this framework of community partners that were focused on mentoring, on education, on after-school programs, on recreation programs, on arts programs to connect with youth and with families, because we were seeing that a higher incidence of youth violence that we wanted to begin to reduce. And as the numbers just continued to rise, we kept at the work, building those relationships, sustaining those relationships, continuing to seek funding. And all of that hard work got the attention of the Attorney General. Both Mark Herring and Jason Miyares got the attention of the governors, Ralph Northam and Glenn Youngkin. Even got the attention of First Lady Suzanne Youngkin, who brought, as fentanyl has come to Roanoke and caused way too many deaths, she recognized the infrastructure work we had done on gun violence and said, you know, Roanoke knows how to do this. And we had established the Roanoke Collective response to address the opioid epidemic. So Roanoke does this well. And all I did was take the seed of an idea that I believed was critical to the health and well-being of our future as a city. And through that hard work, and working with commission members and community partners, we were able to be named a safer community and receive $2.9 million. And I truly believe we were able to receive that funding because of the work we've done the last 5 years. And I also believe that the results we're seeing, 67% reduction in homicides this year and 53% reduction in aggravated assaults, is a testament to how this community has worked so hard together and will continue to work hard, because we know we don't want to just see this as a blip. We want to see this as a long-term solution. And I was really pleased when our new police chief, Scott Booth, one of the first things he said when he came here was that, as someone who does his homework, he acknowledged and was grateful for the hard work we've done over the last 5 years, and acknowledged the work of the Gun Violence Prevention Commission. And knowing that work we've done, was able to come in and build on it and help direct the police department in doing their essential work of building on those relationships in the community. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing I'm probably most proud of, and the thing that has been absolutely the most difficult work that I may ever do in my life.
Mm-hmm. This is a perfect segue to my next question, which is about gun violence and the commission. We saw gun violence spike after the pandemic, mm-hmm. and as you pointed out, in the last year, police reported 67% decrease in gun violence homicides. You touched on this, but to what extent do you contribute that to the work of the commission?
I contribute a large percentage of that to the work of the commission. If we didn't have the commission that had spent the time to focus on building these community partnerships, to working with the state to get funding to local organizations that have these relationships with people, If it weren't for the fact of our support of the police department and the Star City Task Force that has, it's a combination of not only our police, but the ATF, the U.S. Marshal's Office, the U.S. District Attorney, and the Commonwealth Attorney. Because of that relationship, we've been able to seize more guns from the streets. We've been able to make more arrests. This year, in fact, we've had more cases closed by arrest than we have historically in previous years. And I think a lot of that is due to this collaborative effort. So everything we do, it's not just about the commission. It's not just about the police. It's not just about the Commonwealth Attorney. It's not just about Star City Safe, which is, expanding hours in the libraries and activities with Parks and Recreation and training teen apprentices to get HR skills through our HR department and then work in city departments. It's all of that together and the consistency of that and the sustainability of that that keeps this on the forefront of people's minds. And in addition to that, the care we take in acknowledging people who have lost loved ones to gun violence, whether it's the work of Fed Up, whether it's the work of Carillion and their hospital-based violence intervention trauma program, whether it's the Reset team following up with families with resources, or the Youth and Gang Violence Prevention team connecting with youth who don't have a mentor in their life and making sure they have a mentor and making sure their families have support. The heart of this is building relationships and helping people see a different path for their future than one that may cause harm to themselves or to someone else.
Mm-hmm. As you know, the commission has been subject to some city audits and has faced some scrutiny from council members. That scrutiny led some commissioners to resign. What is your response to criticism that some of the commission's work has gone towards supporting so-called feel-good efforts that do not directly correlate to impacting gun violence?
Everything we've done has been focused on prevention, intervention, response, or justice. And every initiative we have focused on has had one of those elements of focus. People have different opinions about what they think works and what they think doesn't work. And that's fine, they can have their opinions, but ultimately we have wanted to test a variety and pilot a variety of things to see the sorts of connections we would have with people in the community. We've piloted a lot of programs that are recreation-based, and for kids for whom sports is their key connection, it's fantastic. For kids whose key expression is more artistic, we've tried to create pathways for them to find expression in doing that, and that's life-saving for them, much like recreation is life-saving. We piloted a conflict resolution program that I had hoped we would be able to pilot for a couple of years to really see the breadth and depth of that. And I hope we'll be able to return to something like that, because last year, a majority of the homicides that we recorded were due to conflict in relationships and beefs that people had with other people. So one of the things I love about Roanoke is that we're willing to test things out, to try them, but then also think about how can we sustain them. Because grant money only goes so far. The other thing I'll say is this. One of the things I've realized, and I was just on a call yesterday with a group that was looking at equity within ARPA funding and how some cities delivered that very effectively, and Roanoke was featured talking about the process we went through to create those priorities, and specifically talking about how we partnered with Goodwill to build this new grocery store, the Market on Melrose. All of those efforts, whether they're directly about reducing violence or not, are going to reduce violence because it leads to employment, it leads to healthy food, it leads to greater healthcare opportunities. It leads to budgeting, But one of the things I've learned is that we have in Roanoke some very core grassroots organizations that have not been fully trained or equipped in how to write a grant, how to monitor that grant. What do you need to keep track of? And on this call yesterday, it was acknowledged across the nation that we need to do better as communities to mentor upstart or startup nonprofits, much like we do with the RAMP Accelerator program here for small businesses, with a mentor, someone who's very skilled in nonprofit work, to guide that organization through and to help them see, is this a program that is essential? Clearly it is. Is it best that it become a nonprofit, or is it a program that can work within the umbrella of another nonprofit? And if it is, then how do we expand that out so that we're making sure you have the support you need as an organization? And the commission really spent some time working on that, and I'm hopeful as mayor that I can work with our nonprofit community, which I'm very familiar with, to create this kind of accelerator program for nonprofit organizations with very skilled mentors who can guide them through that. And I think in the end, that's going to really strengthen our network of nonprofit organizations in the community.
You're the only candidate who supports recent policies that ended exclusively single-family zoning. Why are your fellow candidates wrong on this issue?
They may have various reasons for not supporting it. I supported it because, for a number of reasons. One is that Roanoke has been working really hard, particularly in the last 10 years, to change the narrative about being one of the most segregated cities in Virginia. 5 years ago, when we received a grant from Virginia Department of Humanities to work collectively as a community to address this history of segregation, Points of Diversity became the lead agency, and they created a series of 7 events called Changing the Narrative. And it began to bring people together in such a thoughtful way to explore, well, what is our history? How did we get there? What was the role of urban renewal in that process? And as I began to research, reading the book, The Color of Law, and learning the history of redlining and how through zoning, people were excluded from living in certain places under single-family zoning, it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't set right, and it still doesn't. And I still believe we as a city have work to do in reckoning our past and moving forward. I was so pleased when Councilman Fitzpatrick shared what he did about, it's just common sense. If you have the opportunity to right a wrong historically, do it. That's why it makes sense to me. And it's one piece of the puzzle. And I will continue to work. As I said before, social justice, equity, and equality are absolutely critical to me and my values, and they're critical to the future of our city and the well-being of our city. And sometimes we have to reflect on policy in a way that not everyone understands or can relate to, but that ultimately is in the best interest of the city. This doesn't take anything away from the beautiful, diverse flavors of our community and our people. It only adds to that in a way that I think can only make our city richer in that regard.
You're going out to dinner in Roanoke.
Mm-hmm.
Name one place. Where do you go?
Oh, just one? Oh man, kind of depends on what I'm in the mood for. So Bloom is one of my favorites. because I think the small plates, the array of options that they have, having traveled in Spain, walked the Camino 8 years ago, firsthand got a look at tapas, and they do it so well. I have like a top 10 that I could run through really quick. But James and I were married on the rooftop of Center in the Square, where Six and Sky is now. So every time I'm in Six and Sky, I kind of look over in the corner and I think, that's where we got married. That's where we were able to legally get married, thanks to the Supreme Court. So a lot of the places that I love to eat have special meaning to me. We've been going to Rockfish ever since it opened. And it goes back to the relationships that you build with people and the investment that local restaurateurs have, local small businesses, their creative spirit. And even through COVID, the adaptability of restaurants like, all of the downtown restaurants, and then shifting to some outdoor dining, it really became a lifeline for them. And I want to make sure that I don't ever want to experience another pandemic, but I want us to be more agile in supporting our local restaurants to make sure they have what they need in these very difficult times to offer the best that they can. And so, however we can do that, I'm open to that. And, I've always loved that in Roanoke, I never have to go to a chain restaurant because we have so many incredible local options here, and all of them are good.
I know, it's a tough question.
It is a tough
one. And then, of course, we have our standard question. What books are on your nightstand? What are you reading?
So I just picked up a book on, it's a biography of Audre Lorde, who was a queer writer, poet and prose. Some of her essays have been really transformative for me in my journey. I'm reading The Cemetery of Untold Stories by Julia Alvarez as part of a book club I'm in. It's Rainy Day Reads, but we meet at Crystal Spring Grocery. And I picked that up from one of our libraries because it's reflective of the dissertation I did on really capturing some of the historic narratives of ancestors whose remains were removed to Coiner Springs, but also talking to their descendants and their own discovery about where their loved ones may or may not be buried, and telling their stories. So that's another one. I'm also reading a book related to housing and homelessness that really talks about the biggest problem and the biggest solution to homelessness is housing. And for me, it's all intertwined.
Well, while I have you, I just have to ask one more thing. For the record, why the bow ties?
Thank you. So for a long time, I've just worn the regular ties. Although when I was very young, 4, 5, I have photographs that either my parents took, and these were done like in a professional studio, or my grandma took, where I was wearing a little black and white polka dot bow tie. It was a clip-on, and I still have it. I may wear it someday just for fun. Like, this is my 5-year-old self. When my daughter Emma and her now husband Connor were getting married, the theme of their rehearsal dinner was bow ties and barbecue. And so I decided I was going to learn how to tie a bow tie. And I watched a YouTube video for about an hour, and I was so aggravated with the video that I threw my phone down. And I walked away and just took a breather, came back in about a half hour, went through it one more time, and it worked. I thought, if I went to all that effort to learn how to tie a bow tie, I'm going to wear them as often as I can. And it's been fun to give expression through color and designs through my bow ties. And I hope in some way it's kind of helping bring a resurgence to them. I counted them the other day because somebody asked me, how many do you actually have? And I actually have 54, which is small compared to a lot of people I know who have hundreds.
Really? Wow. That's still quite a lot.
But they're often a conversation piece, and some of them have a particular story. Some of them I just like because of their color scheme. But I like them, and I like what I do is important to me, and how I dress, how I am present in the community. And if I show up at an event where I like am in a t-shirt or just an open collar shirt, people are like, "Where's the bow tie, Joe?" But I will say the other
Introduce this
night,
expectation.
I know,
now.
the other night I was at the Greek festival with my kids, and somebody said, "It's nice to see you just relaxed, having some good Greek food without your bow tie on." And I said, "Well, thank you for that."
That's funny. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
taking
Henry.
The time.
This has been great. I
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.